thanks for coming. Before I start the sort of main body of the talk, I just want to thank, first of all, Mari of the village bookstore, excuse me, for thinking of this venue and sort of setting it all up. And as many of you will know, she's the sort of doyen of the book world here in Plettenberg Bay, and I think Plettenberg Bay without the village bookstore would be like a body without a heart. It would just be a corpse. So thank you very much. And secondly, closer to the book, I think it was Groucho Marx that said, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So a book is all about a cover. And Amazon.com have recently launched a digital reader. It's sort of a little handheld computer, and you can download the book, so to speak, And we'll see where that goes. But for me, a book it's a little Persian miniature. It's a little work of art. On this tiny little stage, this tiny little platform, you have to create something beautiful, something visual, something that looks nice, touches nice, smells nice, something that you can treasure, something beautiful. And to that end, we didn't spare any effort in trying to create that effect. And large thanks go to the designer Joan Hugo from Design Etc. who's here. He's an absolutely gifted designer, and we just hit it off straight away. When you're on a wavelength with someone, that's all that counts. If you're not on a wavelength, you can explain and talk until the cows come home, and it just never happens. And she's responsible for the design language that you see around you here. And I wanted the book to have a single feeling and a single idea carried through from cover to cover. And I think you can decide if that's happened. It's beautifully done. And just a brief word of thanks for actually my parents, because I've always felt, with children, just as a fish grows up in water, children grow up in the medium of love. Little children are soft, transparent, porous beings that absorb vibrations. It's not what you teach or say or do or all of that kind of thing, but just the atmosphere that you grow up in, and they've both been unconditionally loving people and completely spacious, which just has allowed me to be all I want to be whenever the time is right. And you can't put a value on that unspoken, unconditional love. It just becomes a part of you and becomes the foundation of your existence. And it's actually, my mother's probably, Carol, she's probably seen in me, I think, a little bit more than I saw. And was instrumental in the last push to getting this book written. It was an interesting time in my life, 2004. Basically, everything just fell apart. Personally, relationships dissolved. My partner Frank and I were involved in a head-on car accident and smashed up legs and spine and all of that, and the surgeons sort of put it all together again. But I had to spend a few months literally motionless on my back, with a cast and a fusion going on over here. And in some ways, I think you don't often get the privilege in life to be absolutely motionless for such a long time. And I thought I'd make the best of it. And one quiet afternoon in the hospital, my mom slipped a little ring-bound notebook and pencil there, sensing something. And I literally wrote part one of the book upside down on my back. It was good that she brought a pencil. Otherwise, would be half finished. And part one of the book, the opening of the book I start telling the story of love from the top down, from the divine essence of this thing called love, down into our human minds and emotions and our lives. And I think mountaineers would call it, touching the void. At times like that when you're broken, and I mean this sincerely, despite yourself, not because of your efforts, not because of the years of contemplation and reflection, but because you're a broken being. The shell is cracked open and you're vulnerable to the power that is a part of the universe that can only be described as being lifted into a sea of consciousness. And this consciousness feels like love. And that sea communicates that everything that we go through, everything that ever happens to us in this human life, in our human expression, is not arbitrary. It's not to hurt us, to punish us, but rather to draw us closer to that love and ultimately to merge us with that love. And in that experience, you realize that you go through everything again, all suffering of lifetimes, for one tiny drop of that love which is at the heart of creation. And then lastly, I just want to thank the last piece in the puzzle, my wife Annette, my little Swedish swallow from the north that just one day alighted in a little nest in Sedgefield, where I was happily hidden from the world, and things have never quite been the same again. And it bridged the gap between that experience of divine love and all the things that I'd worked on my whole life and my fascination with the subject, to a whole new experience where the two become one. And it's a peculiar thing, we, like a priest who is daily consumed with religion, but is himself spiritually starving. We are literally drowning in images of love, but ourselves remain thirsty for love. Every poem, every book, every film, everywhere you look, the media, everywhere is saturated with images of love forever. What is it? Where does it come from? Why? What is this thing? And I felt why I'm drawn to this, I don't know. I think it's maybe like the bird that one day in mid-flight just asks the question, what is air? What is this invisible thing I'm in that gives me flight, that allows me to defy gravity, that gives me my freedom? And that's the sort of question I ask of love. As my brother's mother-in-law said, I got your book, Hen. It's very deep. I said, it's as deep as it gets, Annie, but it gets shallower toward the end. So don't worry. And that's, that's just what I'm drawn to. I'm really fascinated to get to the bottom of this thing. Is it just an illusion? Is it just a bunch of emotions we've given a label?